Hi, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon to Professor Madya, Dr. Norul Huda and also my fellow friends. We are from Group 4 and for today, we will present about the regulatory framework on halal import and export. Let me introduce first our team members, Nur Fuada, Muaz bin Zulkifli and Ain Faridatun Nur.
With the increased demand around the world towards halal product import and export has become a pretty good business to be involved. Matrade is targeting the export value of halal product and services to further increase by 5% in 2019, as it seeks to encourage local small and medium enterprises to use the nation competitive advantage and tap into the growing of industry. But on the end of December, our country Malaysia shaken up with a controversial issue involving the halal meat cartel. The halal meat has been contaminated with unlawful meat. The meat has been mixed up before selling it to the market. With this issue, many authority bodies involved in this investigation to search for the root of the cause. Therefore, the issue that used to be popular attracted us to do study regarding the regulatory framework on halal import and export, which discussing on the regulatory framework of halal import and export, procedure and documentation of import and export for halal product, and the issue related to halal import and export.
And this is our research objective, to study the regulatory framework of halal import and export in Malaysia. Number 2, to determine the procedure and documentation of import and export halal product. And number 3, to analyze the current issues of import and export halal product in Malaysia. Let's start my first literature review, and actually my part is about issues. So this is my first article about halal food crime in Malaysia and analysis on illegal meat cartel issues by Muhammad Farhan Muhammad Arifin and Nurul Shahada Muhammad Riza. This is new article in 2021. So, Malaysia is known for its high level of sensitivity in the halal and haram aspect. Its status as an international halal hub reflects the sustainable halal ecosystem in the country, supported by the sensitivities of the government, industry and consumers. So, at the end of 2020, Malaysia was shocked by the news of the arrest 1,500 ton of illegal meat cartel smuggling syndicate. This is from countries China, Ukraine, Brazil and Argentina. So, this meat cartel syndicate has been exposed, and this criminal case has opened the eyes of various parties, as it is believed to have been established in Malaysia for many years. Okay, so all parties involved in halal monitoring such as JAKIM, KPDN HEP, JKDM and MACC should work together in the mission of getting rid of halal food crime effectively. Now, we continue my second literature review about regulating halal food consumption Malaysia scenario by Asfalillah A. Rahman, Cik Talbi Ismail and Nur Anita Abdullah 2018. Actually, this is a new article about halal food regulation in Malaysia. So, as we can see, Malaysia passed several laws to regulate the halal food industry. Effective implementation of the law is vital to ensure that halal food producers comply with the obligation under the law, and more importantly, to enhance the Muslim consumer trust halal food products. So, there are several laws to regulate halal food product such as Trade Description Act, which is 2011, about definition of halal, certification and marking of halal, and also another act, Food Act 1983, Food Regulation 1985, Food Hygiene Regulation 2009, and Animal Act 1953, and many more. So, all these acts must be complied with all traders in carrying out the activities of importing and exporting their respective halal food product. Why? To ensure that there are no cases of offences in using halal logo, offences not having a valid permit import and export, and many more offences. My third literature review is about article The Development of Regulation Concerning Halal Through Trade Description Act 2011 in Malaysia by Zalina Zakaria and Siti Zubaida Ismail in 2015. So, this article about the purpose TDA 2011 was created for the application of good trade practice by prohibiting false trade description and statement, operators and practice. This article shows about function of TDA 2011. So, this is due to the concern over the exploitation of consumer with halal logos by manufacturers. Hence, one of the aspects that is emphasized and added is related to the issue of halal. The enactment of this act is part of the government's serious effort to strengthen halal-related legislation, and this enactment of TDA 2011 is not just about halal legislation, but also involve the improvement of legislation related to the intellectual property, halal, advertisement of offence penalties, and enforcement aspect compared to the previous TDA 1972. Then, all the halal exporting and importing traders must comply with this act to ensure that there will be no confusion of halal issue.
Assessing trade facilitation for halal food import through the Safe Right cross-border is written by Noor Bakaria Sarbani and Harlina Suzana Jaafar in 2018. This article is discussing on the trade facilitation as an aid to international trade for moving across the border. It is instantly referred as a remedial effort towards procedures and documentation related to the imports and export process. The major set up for trade facilitation is to achieve four main principles in border crossing process, referring to simplification, harmonization, standardization, and transparency related to border formalities. It was found that regulation, policy, knowledge, experience, visibility, commitment, attitude, mentality, and consistency were some of the additional operational determinant to strategic operational performance in border crossing activities. This paper provides thoughtful information related to cross-border import activities, especially on the current trade facilitation, implementation, and halal food import practice through Safe Right. Does halal food export follow the gravity trade theory? The Malaysian perspective is this study is written by Shahrar Kabir, Yunus Ali, Putri Zarah Amina, and Saadah Munir in 2019. This article discussing on the applicability of the gravity theory of trade in halal food trade appears confusing and inconclusive in the adolescent halal literature. This study aims to further investigate this issue when analyzing the halal export opportunity for Malaysia. This study examined the Malaysian top 10 exportable food communities with the respective key halal market for the period of 2000 until 2017 by using the panel data analysis approach, including the Houseman Taylor model. This study finds the application of gravity theory of trade within the halal context provide mixed result. Being inconsistent to the theory, economic size of both exporter and the trading partners positively influences trade. However, as theoretically predicted, distance between trading partners does not always appear as barrier for halal market trade. In addition, the study identified the food commodities which displays market potential with the key halal markets. This will allow Malaysia to strategically diversify its export in food commodities to the halal market. Halal market emergence and export opportunity. The comparative advantage perspective is written by Shahriar Kabir, Said Sam, and Roger Lorry in 2018. The comparative advantage theory of international trades states that countries should export commodities for which they have high comparative advantage and import commodities for which they have low comparative advantage. This study is analyzing the halal trade flow for Malaysia, 7-Eleven food and food-related commodities from 1991 to 2012, and this study finds an interesting development of the standard view of comparative advantage in the emerging halal export market. The result finds that The greater the country's current comparative advantage in an exported good, the higher the risk of exported diversion. There is one or two-way casualty between the halal market and the conventional market, with the export expansion of halal export, while the diversion risk disappear with lower current comparative advantage.
Based on the article titled Malaysia Model Challenges in Halal Certification by Datuk Dr. Sirajuddin Suhaimi, halal market has become a global and there is increasing demand for halal products and purchasing power among Muslims worldwide. To ensure the success of increasing Malaysia's halal certification, JAKIM has established the Halal Approved for Overseas Slaughterhouse. Before imported the meat, the products must be halal certified from the recognized foreign halal certification bodies. Then there will be inspection from Department of Veterinary Services and JAKIM to approve and verify the halal status. Next artikel, Pemantauan dan Penguatkuasaan Halal terhadap Produk Makanan Import oleh JAKIM by Muhammad Zaid Daud. The procedure of enforcement and monitoring for import food product are relying on the verification of halal certification. One of the type for halal certification scheme for food import is imported food products that use halal certification and halal logo by foreign Islamic bodies recognized by JAKIM. JAKIM has provided halal certification circulars of foreign Islamic bodies for enforcement and monitoring. The procedure are for them to apply halal recognition from JAKIM. In order to ensure the imported food product that came in Malaysia are certified halal, JAKIM uses the halal certification circular as one of the ways for the foreign certification body to carry out its responsibilities in monitoring and enforcing products from their country. Next article titled Export Makanan Halal Malaysia, Analisa Berkenaan Isu Memenuhi Permintaan Global by Ahmad Hisham Azizan. The exportation for food industry in Malaysia has been seen as collapsing. Several issues are highlighted to be improved and becoming global. First, government should providing mentor to guide small medium industry as there are many of them, but they did not have guidance on how to strategize the business. Second, they should provide opportunities to expand the market for SME so the products can be marketed globally. And third, government must not only relying on the import from other countries as some of the product can be produced locally, and big company is needed to provide investment and helping to manage into globally. This shows that big company plays an important role to bring halal food industry in this country becoming main export, because most of the entrepreneurs come from SME group and they are not many of them have the support. My name is Nurfada binti Muhammad Syari and I will present the regulatory framework on halal import and export. JAKIM is an agency that is responsible to process, certify and issuance halal certification and halal logo. They has worked with many agencies to enforce the regulation of halal Malaysia. JAKIM also has the authority to recognize the foreign halal certification bodies, and so for the importation of halal meat and meat-based product which intended to be imported into Malaysia, they must be halal certified by foreign halal certification bodies. Not only they must get the halal certified, they also must ensure their plants are approved by JAKIM and DVS, which it must be in compliance with the Malaysian Protocol for Halal Meat and Poultry Production. To ensure the plants to be approved by JAKIM, importer must refer to the Malaysian Protocol for the Halal Meat and Poultry Productions. It provides the fundamental guidelines on good halal practices in meat, poultry, meat-based and poultry-based production. It gives a clear guidance in the production of halal meat and poultry, such as processing, stunning method, slaughtering, storage and transportation of halal meat. JAKIM will monitor the foreign slaughterhouse by establish the appointment of foreign halal certification bodies. It is a special procedure for foreign halal certification bodies to apply for recognition as they will certify halal by those bodies, and JAKIM will only verify it according to what is complied. Next, JAKIM is enforced by Trade Description Act 2011 under the Trade Description Order 2011. This Trade Description Act was enacted to replace the Trade Act 1972, which they has improved the legislation regarding halal. There are two orders relating to halal enforcement in the new Trade Description Act, which is under Section 28 and 29. It is about the definition of halal, Order 2011, and Trade Description, Certification and Marking of Halal, Order 2011. In Section 3 of Trade Description, Certification and Marking of Halal, it stated that JAKIM and MAIN, as the competent authorities to certify any food or goods, is halal in accordance with Trade Description Order 2011. And in this section, it gives authorities to JAKIM to monitor the foreign halal bodies as they are the competent authorities. Importation matters are stated under Trade Description, Certification and Marking of Halal, Order 2011 in paragraph 5, subsection 1 and 2. It mentioned about certification of description of halal for imported food and goods. In subsection 1, it stated that imported food and good shall only be described as halal if they comply with the requirement or certified by foreign halal certificate bodies. In subsection 2, it stated that importer or any manufacturer that is certified under foreign halal certificate bodies, they must mark the halal logo based on the said certification body, which means that the halal logo must based on the halal certification body that approve them. The second agency is Department of Veterinary Services, or known as DVS. These departments are under the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Industry. They issue permit for the importation and exportation of live animal and animal product. Some of their functions are to control, prevent and eradicate animal and zoonotic diseases, to inspect meat, milk, eggs, animal feed, abattoir and veterinary products processing plant, and lastly, to control of import and export of livestock and animal procedure and quarantine service. DVS will work together with JAKIM and MAKIS for the cases of importation of meat. The act that related to this agency in import and export are the Animal Act 1953, Animal Importation Order 1962, and Animal Rules 1962. The authority for the process of halal certificate application is given to DVS and KKM, which KKM serve to verify the safety of overseas slaughterhouse that have been applied for recognition of halal certification. Before meat can be imported in our country, their slaughterhouse need to get verification, in which the officer of DVS, JAKIM and KKM, they will check the condition of animals, food safety of livestock, and ensuring the procedure of slaughter according to provided procedure. They need to get halal certified by their foreign halal certified body, and only after that, JAKIM will verify and the DVS will approve to get import permit. Under the Animal Act 1953, Section 5 and 6 stated the prohibition of entry of live animals, birds and any products except with an import permit and license by DVF, which means to import an animals, they must have a permit and license that need to be applied by DVS. In Section 6, Subsection 3, if one who found guilty makes an offence that is contrary from what has been stated in the previous section, they can be fined of 5,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term of 2 years or both. And this is for import offences. For exportation, it mentioned in Section 14 that to export any animal, they need a license from DVS. And if they commit offences, the fine will be the same as importation, which is 5,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term or 2 years or both. In Section 7, before the process of import, DVS require meat and animal-based product from import to make examination and detention. As what the section state, which is every animal or bird imported or about to be imported, they must require an examination. This is to make a prevention that the animals may or have been exposed to any infection or disease. This requirement also apply to exportation animals that stated in Section 16 Animal Act. Next is Malaysian Quarantine and Inspection Services, or known as MAKIS. It is an agency that established under Ministry of Agriculture and Agro-Based Industry. in Malaysia. It provides integrated services such as quarantine and certification for import and export of plants, animal, carcasses, fish, agricultural produce, soils and microorganisms, including inspection of enforcement relating to food and related matters. Some of their functions are to issue permits, licenses and certificate for import and export, establish and manage the quarantine station, and others. To be concluded about markets, there are 5 aspects of what markets do, which is quarantine, when any of agricultural or agro-based products into our country or to be exported, they will quarantine first to prevent from any exotic or zoonotic diseases. Next, doing inspection, enforcement, integrated service and to guard the entry or exit points of country from bringing things that are not safe for consumers. Markis is enforced by the Malaysian Quarantine and Inspection Services Act 2011. The importer are required to have permit, license and certificate before they are importing, and it is according to Section 11, subsection 1, which is for import it says no person shall import without permit, license or certificate under Markis. While for subsection 2, for export it only need permit or license before exporting. In Section 11, subsection 3, it mentioned the fine of one who will liable if they contravene the requirement, which is not exceeding 100,000 ringgit, or imprisonment not more than 6 years, or both. In Section 16, Markis has the authority to implement its power at entry points, quarantine station, and quarantine premises. Okay, now the agency is Royal Malaysian Custom Department, or known as Custom. Custom are legislated under Custom Act 1967 and Custom Prohibition of Import 2017. They has an authority regarding the issues of import and export in this country. Their roles are to ensure the enforcement on halal as a cross-border agency, where they also guarding the entry point together with Markis to check goods that come in our country. They work together with Jakim and DVS in aspect of import and export of meat and meat-based products. For import, the legislation are under the Customs Prohibition of Import Order 2017, while for export it is under the Custom Prohibition of Export Order 2017. In the order, it required that all meat and livestock imported into Malaysia are halal. Under the third schedule in Part 1, Number 1 of Custom Prohibition of Import Order 2017, it has listed goods that is prohibited to be imported in Malaysia, except under the manner provided, which they need to refer the description of goods and the manner of import. Here in this picture, it shows the third schedule part 1, item number 1, that shows the importer should refer the schedule for importation of meats and meat-based product, as it required to follow the manner of import, such as the need to have an import permit issued by Markis before they can be imported. While for export, we can refer to Customs Prohibition of Export Order 2017, where it requires the same as the import. They need export permit that issued by Markis before approved to be exported.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muaz bin Zulkifli and I will present the procedure and documentation of import and halal export. Moving on to the procedure of importing halal product, the first step of the procedure is all import of goods into Malaysia must be declared. The declaration can be made by an agent that has been appointed by the custom, or it can be made by self. That is called self-declaration, or to the direct user. The second step or the next step of this procedure is the classification of goods. The importer need to obtain confirmation on the goods to be imported into Malaysia, whether they are subject to any duties or taxes, by obtaining the correct tariff code for the goods. The third step is check whether the goods are controlled goods or import prohibited goods. The goods must be checked whether the goods to be imported are controlled or subject to import prohibition or restriction by the authorities. It must be checked whether the goods requires an import permit or approval from another government agency, also known as OGA. This step is really important in halal import because it involves other agency that requires to make sure the procedure of halal import can be done. In example, for importing halal meat, he must get a permit at DVS, and the permit must be issued by Marquis before the meat can be entered to the country. For the halal meat, it must have the halal certification from JAKIB or other foreign halal bodies that have been rectified by JAKIB, and must have the health certificate of the animal. Okay, moving on to the fourth step, there is the declaration and preparation of document for custom release. Each importer must make a full and a true declaration of goods imported personally or by his agent upon arrival at the landing goods in Malaysia. The declaration must be in the form which is the import declaration from custom form number 1, and it must be along with the import permit. The importer or his agent shall submit document as requested by the authorized officer of custom for the purpose of assessing any declaration made by the importer. The list of supporting document is as follow. That is, the first is bill of lading or airway bill, invoice, packing list, country of origin certificate if needed, other document that is related to for the halal import. For instance, the halal meat, it must have the halal certificate of the meat and the veterinary health certificate by the government from the origin country. Okay, the fifth step is the inspection of good. The authority, that is Jabatan Custom di Raja Malaysia or the custom, reserve the right to inspect consignment to ensure the importation complies with the law and regulation. The sixth step is the payment duties and taxes. Duties or taxes payable on imported goods must be paid by the importer upon arrival of the goods. Moving on, the documentation that needed for importing a halal product is the commercial invoice. These documents stating commercial transaction between importers and exporters. The key items mentioned in this document include the first is the billing and the delivery dates, the invoice number, the terms and of sale price and quantity, payment terms, details of seller and buyer, method of transportation, freight details, and description of goods. And the document is issued by the importer from the exporter in order to be able to make payment. Next is the packing list. Packing list is a document describing the type and the quantity of goods during a particular shipment. And the next is the certificate of origin. Certificate of origin is a document confirming the place of the manufacturer or the place of the origin of the goods. And the next is the insurance document. This document stating insurance coverage for the shipment. Now we move on to the import documentation for halal product. The first is that needed for the documentation is the import declaration K1 form. It is a uniform import document containing compliance, administrative and statistical information. This form is required by the government to assess shipment in excess of a certain minimum amount of the claim duty. This document is issued by the agent that has been appointed by the custom. Okay, next is the import license and permit. Import license is a document issued by the approved government authorizing in the import of specific from a particular country. The license is issued by the custom, Malaysian custom, while the permit is issued by the OGA or other government agency. For instance, for the halal meat, the permit is issued by Makis after the application has been submitted to them for the import of halal meat. The application includes the certification from JAKIM and other or halal foreign body that has been recognized by JAKIM, and the veterinary health certificate. Okay, next is the pro forma invoice. This invoice issued to the importer for payment on the goods before the delivery is made. This document includes custom affair and advance payments. Okay, next is the bill of lading. This bill is signed by the carrier. It is issued to the shipper to confirm the goods as stated therein have been transported in a particular vessel and delivered to a designated destination or have been received in the custody of the ship owner for delivery. The details of bill lading included the general nature of the goods, the number of the units, weight and quantity of the goods, name and place of the carrier, the consignant name, recipient or the consignee if specified by the recipient, and the port for receiving goods and port for unloading goods. This document is sent by the shipping agent for custom clearance at the port. Okay, the next is the airway bill. Airway bill is the non-negotiable transport document for air cargo transport. The details included the place and the date of implementation, place and departure and the destination, the name and the address of the sender, the name and the address for the first carrier, type of goods, number of packages, weight, quantity, volume and the dimension of the goods, and the condition of the goods. This document is issued by the shipping agent for clearance of the goods. Moving on, the documentation that needed for importing a halal product is the commercial invoice. These documents stating commercial transaction between importers and exporters. The key items mentioned in this document include the first is the billing and the delivery dates, the invoice number, the terms and of sale price and quantity, payment terms, details of seller and buyer, method of transportation, freight details, and description of goods. And the document is issued by the importer from the exporter in order to be able to make payment. Next is the packing list. Packing list is a document describing the type and the quantity of goods during a particular shipment. And the next is the certificate of origin. Certificate of origin is a document confirming the place of the manufacturer or the place of the origin of the goods. And the next is the insurance documents. This document stating insurance coverage for the shipment. Moving on to the procedure of export of halal product. Actually, the procedure for the import and export is almost the same, only a difference just from a few parts. Okay, therefore I will explain in one by one. The first is the custom declaration. It's just the same with the import. All the imports of good all the export of good must be declared in the K2 form. This is different between the import. The import must be declared in the K1 form, but for the export it must be declared in the K2 form. And next is the classification of goods. It's almost the same. You need to the exporter need to obtain confirmation on the goods to be exported, whether they are subject to any duties or taxes or checks by the obtaining the contact tariff for the goods. It can be referred as the HS Explorer. That is in my sstax.custom.gov.my/tariff. That is almost the same as the procedure from the import procedure. Okay, the next is to check whether the goods are controlled or whether the goods are controlled goods or export prohibited. This must be checked by the this must be checked whether the goods require an export permit and approval from another government agency or OGA. Is almost the same, but for the export there is an act that every exporter need to comply. There is the Strategic Trade Act 2010. I will explain later on the documentation. Next is the declaration and preparation of document for custom release. Is the same as the import. Each exporter must make a full and true declaration of goods exported personally or by his agent upon arriving or landing of the goods to the country that are wanted to be. Okay, the next is the inspection of good. This is also the same. First, the custom or the authority reserve the right to inspect the goods to ensure the exportation comply with the laws and the regulation. Okay, the next is the payment of duty or cess. Duty of cess is payable on exported good, must be paid by the export upon the before the goods being exported. Moving on to the seventh step, there is the custom approval. Is almost the same as the import for the custom approval in import procedure for the halal product. So for the exported procedure in custom approval, the goods to be exported must approve for release. That it already pay the duties and the checks, and the permit as obtained. And move on to the next step. There is the custom release. Is just the same as this procedure is the same as the for the import. So for the exported, the custom clearance can be allowed after all action that have been set by the Jabatan Custom Diraja Malaysia have been complied and fulfilled. So moving on, the ninth and the final step is there is the safe documents. All documents must be safe within the 7 years, and if the general director have approved, then it can be saved or it can be disposed. Okay, that's all. Okay, moving on to the documentation for halal export. For your information, the documentation for halal import and halal export are almost the same. Only a few differences that I will tell you later. Okay, the first is the documentation for halal export is the import declaration form. It must the exporter must fill in the declaration K1 form. I'm sorry, K2 form for the declaration. The declaration is the import declaration is a uniform export document containing compliance and administrative and statistical information. This form is required by the government to access shipment in excess of a certain minimum amount or claim of duty. This document is issued by the agent that have been appointed by the custom. Okay, the next is import export license and permit. So export license is a document issued by an approved government authorizing the import of specific good from a particular country. This license is issued by Jabatan Custom Diraja Malaysia, while the permit is issued by the OGA or another government agency, which there are different agencies that are involved for the permit. For example, is for the halal meat. If you want to for fruits, if you want to export the fruit, you must getting a phytonasi certificate from the Department of Agriculture. Then you must submitted this phytonasi certificate to markets, and markets will issue the export permit for the fruit. Okay, next is we move on to the invoice of pro forma invoice. This invoice is issued to the exporter for payment. This invoice issued to the importer for the payment of the goods before the export has been made. This document includes customer fare and advance payment. Okay, next is the bill of lading. Is just the same as the import document. The bill is signed by the courier. It is issued to the shipper to inform the goods as stated therein have been transported in a particular vessel and delivered to the designated destination, or have been received in the custody of the ship owner for delivery. The details of bill lading included the general nature of goods, the number of units, weight and quantity of goods, name and place of the carrier, sender name, recipient of specified by the recipient, and port of receiving and port of unloading goods. This document is sent by the shipping agent for the custom clearance at the port. Okay, the next is the commercial invoices. It is a invoice commercial. It is a document stating commercial transaction between importers and exporters. Key items mentioned in this document includes the billing and delivery dates, invoice number, terms of sale, price and quantity, details of seller and buyer, method of transportation, freight details, and description on goods. This document issued because it is in order for the importer that has been export to able to make payment. Okay, moving on to the next slide. There is still on the documentation for export for halal product. Okay, next is the packing list. The packing list is a document describing the type and the quantity of goods during a particular shipment. Okay, the next is the certificate origins. It is a document confirming the place manufacture or the place of origins of the goods. And next is the insurance document. This document is stating insurance coverage for the shipment. So as I mentioned earlier, the Strategic Trade Act is one of the important document that exporter really need to look for, because the Strategic Trade Act is a law governing the export, transmission, transit and brokerage of strategic goods and technologies, including weapons, related material, as well as the activities that will or may facilitate the design, development of production and delivery of weapons of mass destruction. This act is consistent with the national and international security obligation. So for every exporters, it is a responsibility for them to determine if their product are listed as the strategic goods and should be obtain a permit before exporting. It's also for the halal product also, they must obtaining permits and clarification from the custom whether their goods are can be exported to the countries that require the product. Okay, that's all.
Hi, my name is Ain Faridatun Nur binti Muhammad Fairuzi, and for today I will present about the current issues of import and export halal product in Malaysia. As you can see, this is my first issue about Malaysians are shocked by the issues of illegal meat import. Okay, this is current issue 2 December 2020 in Senai, Johor Bahru. Okay, as we know, this is the current issue, this is the hot issue and also sensitive for all Muslim because the status halal of cartel meat become haram. Okay, why? Okay, it start when Makis, Royal Malaysian Custom Department, KPDNHEP, JAIN, Johor Islamic Religious Department raid a warehouse was used as a collection point smuggle frozen meat whose halal status was doubtful in Senai, Johor Bahru. Okay, so they have the tactic which is smuggling frozen meat from India, China, Ukraine, Brazil and Argentina before repackaging the meat with the halal logo and selling it to market across Malaysia. And based on my research, there are 30 market in Malaysia which is collaborate with this warehouse. Okay, so Makis Director General Saiful Yazan Alwi said in the raid 1,500 ton of cold meat worth RM30 million were seized. Okay, so the syndicate obtained stock of frozen meat from abroad before allegedly smuggling through Pasir Gudang Port and Tanjung Pelepas Port. And now we continue the basic question from all the Muslim society in Malaysia or another country, which is how can all the cartel meat get into Malaysia? How can? Okay, the answer is 4 things, which is they use fake document including custom form, import permit, halal certificate and payment receipt, which is invoice like that. So, can you imagine every year they use fake document. They use fake document. So, not just the fake document, they also the syndicate also imported meat from legal source before being brought to the warehouse in Senai. So, this their tactic. Okay, based on result investigation, found that suspect meat would then be repackaged in a room equipped with a cutting machine and packing work was done by some Bangladesh workers. Okay, Bangladesh workers. Okay, so the meat or internal organ will be put in a box before being pressed in sticker and stamp and label as if the meat is halal. Okay, so that's why I say they use fake logo, halal fake logo, not by JAKIM. Okay, and in this warehouse, it believe there is a legal and illegal meat. So they believe the meat is, if the meat is halal, there will be no repackaging process. So there are 4 offences regarding this issue. First, from TDA, which is Act 730, Trade Description Act 2011, Halal Certificate and Marketing. In Section 8, they use the JAKIM halal logo without permission. Okay, and number 2 is Malaysia Quarantine and Inspection Services Act 2011, MAKIS. Act 728, which is in Section 11, importing the commodity without a valid permit. And also in the same act, which is MAKIS, Section 15, a person who is involved in the importation does not comply with permit conditions. And lastly, also in the same act, which is MAKIS, Section 13, giving misleading statement in the permit. So this is 4 offences regarding this issue. And as you can see in the picture is a sample of permit import markings. Okay, now I want to show you the SOP for import of frozen meat. Okay, there are 5 elements, which is product must be recorded and also have import permit and so on. So this is the official procedure for import frozen meat in Malaysia. We continue my second issues about Makis Penang seized 7,650 kg of Indian buffalo meat. Okay, this issue is in Butterworth, Pulau Pinang, and this is also current issue, which is this year, 13 April 2021, according to Sinar Harian. And regarding this issue, Makis Penang detained 4 containers carrying frozen buffalo meat from India at 2:20 PM on Monday. There are 2 offences, which is all the consignment did not comply with the conditions of the import permit issued by Makis Department. Second, the entire trade has failed to display the information required on the condition of the approved import permit. So based on the offences, they failed to comply the condition set out on the Makis import permit. Now we continue according Act 728, which is Malaysian Quarantine and Inspection Services Act 2011. In section 15 about import and export condition, as we can see, this is their offences, which is they not comply with any import condition as specified in the permit, license or certificate. So they will be punished with which is be liable to fine not exceeding RM100,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 years or to both. This is based on their offences. Now, I just want to share with all of you about the regulation for the importation of frozen deboned buffalo meat from India. Okay, this regulation is from JPV official website. Okay, I just want to share with you. This is the very important regulation that must be complied by all the importer traders. And now we move to the third issue, which is export issue in Malaysia. So I choose the issue of Makis foil a student's attempt to export durian Musang King to Saudi Arabia. Okay, this is the current issue based on Metro, Harian Metro, 4 December 2020 in KLIA, Sepang. Now, Makis, in collaboration with Malaysia Airport Auxiliary Police, arrested a local and seized 280 packet of durian Musang King weighing 126 kg. Okay, actually this issue is about a local male student. He study in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So he want to export the durian Musang King in Saudi Arabia, but he doesn't have valid permit export. Okay, so indirectly the offences is not having a valid export permit and also phytosanitary certificate. So based on their offences, the act exporting agriculture product without a valid permit is offence under section 11 Makis, which is Act 728. And regarding this issue, this is their act, which is 728, Malaysian Quarantine and Inspection Services Act 2011, about permit, license and certificate. So the student must have a valid permit export. Okay, if he want to export the durian Musang King to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Also, I want to share with you about the sample of export and import permit from Makis. So, all the exporter and importer must have a valid permit to import and export their product to another country. And lastly, I want to share with you about the phytosanitary certificate. What is this? Okay, phytosanitary certificate is a plant health certificate issued by the exporting country as a confirmation or verification that treatment or other essential state in the import permit have been complied. Okay, this is the sample is from DOA, Department of Agriculture. Okay, so the student must have two things, which is a valid permit export and also phytosanitary certificate. Okay, why? To ensure that the durian Musang King is still safe to eat by all consumers. And as a conclusion, Malaysia ranks a special position in the global halal market. So all the government agency who is monitoring the import and export halal product must be careful to ensure that no matters occurs about the halal issues, halal logo, misleading halal issues and so on. And number 2, all parties in the halal industry import and export business must also comply all the rules and conditions. So all the import and export traders also must comply all the act to ensure that the procedure runs smoothly and no errors occurs. And lastly, all the act have been mentioned are guidelines that must be complied with the government agency and also import and export traders. Why? Because we want to ensure that all products are guaranteed quality and safe to use by all consumers. That's all from our group. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.